I'm Janet Lee Tobias, and I am interviewing Dave Robinson. He is the Salt Lake County Mayor candidate. And we have some questions here from the Utah chapter of the Sierra Club. And so let's get right on these and ask these because
Great.
the environment's really important. The Wasatch Range provides a large portion of the culinary water supplies for the county and incorporated entities. It has multiple government jurisdictions. What do you see as Salt Lake County's role and responsibilities in improving water quantity and quality?
That's actually a really good question. There are multiple layers to the water systems and water sources here in the county. I don't know how many people know, but Salt Lake City, which is in Salt Lake County, of course, was given extraterritorial jurisdiction in the early 1900s. And what had happened there is the state officials had looked and said, we anticipate that Salt Lake City will be providing water to, at the time it was the largest city, and that they would be providing water to a lot of the residents in the valley. And so they gave them extraterritorial jurisdiction, and that allows them to monitor land that is outside of their city boundaries. And so they have had that jurisdiction since the early 1900s. Well, since then, you have the county health department, the state of Utah, the Corps of Engineers, federal regulations over these areas. And so there are multiple layers of jurisdiction with these monitoring the water quality. And so as we look at the growing county, we have a number of municipalities that are now reaching to be a city of the first class. And so some of them can say, hey, we want extraterritorial jurisdiction. And so we really need to look and say, is the jurisdiction that Salt Lake City has, is that appropriate for where we are today? And does the county need to step in and play a stronger role? And my take on this is the county definitely needs to step in and take a stronger role. We need to really look at the watershed manuals and watershed programs and plans that are in place. There are watershed plans that Salt Lake City has that are now decades old. They do not have what one would consider a current watershed plan. We also really need to look at our forestry in those canyons, fire mitigation, what makes a healthy forest, because we know that if those areas do catch fire, there's a lot of underbrush that is not being maintained. If those areas do catch fire, what does that do to our watershed? We will certainly see a tremendous amount of soil erosion. We will see our streams and our lakes affected tremendously. We will see it affects as the snow melts, it will affect the snowpack. It will affect a number of areas. And so we need to make sure that the county has an active role in our watershed management. We need to make sure that we have updated watershed plans, and we need to make sure that our forest health is that we do have a healthy forest.
Hi, I'm Janet Lee Tobias, and I'm talking with Dave Robinson. He's the candidate for Salt Lake County Mayor. This is an extremely important political position because it's the second largest elected office in the state. And I have here a group of questions from the Utah chapter of the Sierra Club. So let's get into these because the environment's very important. So the Wasatch Range provides a large portion of the culinary water supplies for the county and incorporated entities. It has multiple government jurisdictions. What do you see as Salt Lake County's role and responsibilities in improving water quantity and quality?
Okay, that is a really good question, because we know that there's around 1.2 million people here in the county. We know that we are an economic driver for the state of Utah. We know that we are experiencing a lot of population growth within the county. and that none of this can really happen without water, the appropriate quantity of water, and the appropriate quality of water. Here in the county, they have taken a back seat for many, many years on a number of these water issues, and I would move the county's role front and center. And for those that may or may not know, Salt Lake City received in the early 1900s extraterritorial jurisdiction. And just to give you a little historical, at the time, it's the largest city in the state, and it was anticipated by the state leaders that Salt Lake City would continue to grow and to expand. And so they said, we will give you extraterritorial jurisdiction, meaning we will give you the authority to monitor land outside of your city boundaries. And so their extraterritorial jurisdiction covers a lot of, it will cover Big Cottonwood Canyon, Little Cottonwood Canyon, some of Mill Creek, and a lot of those areas. So, but as we look at that jurisdiction, and their jurisdiction allows them pollution control. But as we look at that and apply it to today, we now have the county health department, which monitors water quality. We have the state of Utah that also monitors, and we have the Corps of Engineers and federal guidelines. And so is that extraterritorial jurisdiction granted to one municipality as important today as it was all those years ago? And so again, I would really look to bringing the county on the forefront of water quality and water quantity. For example, right now, Salt Lake City does not have current watershed management plans in those canyons, and those certainly need to be updated. We also do not have a full-time forester that monitors the health of the trees and the vegetation. We have a tremendous problem with undergrowth in those canyons, and the undergrowth, of course, accentuates the potential of forest fires. And as we get into, if we do have some forest fires in those areas, it's going to really affect our soil quality. It will affect the absorption as the snow is melting. We will have more erosion, which will then affect our streams and our rivers and our lakes in those areas. We will be much more prone to mudslides. And so there are a lot of areas that are not being addressed and maintained properly within those canyons. And so I will put the county on the forefront of those watershed studies, making sure that they are current and updated, making sure that we have appropriate people monitoring the health of our vegetation and trees and such.
Well, that's really important, and I think we hear a lot about water every day. I think we're all pretty concerned about the water levels, and I've spent quite a bit of time, speaking of water, trying to preserve the Jordan River, and it's an extreme concern. Utah's the second driest state in the nation, and the Jordan River is the lifeblood of Salt Lake County. There's only one river that runs through Salt Lake County. And within 3 counties, there's probably like 1 million people that live within 20 minutes of the Jordan River. And so I'm curious about how you feel about the Jordan River. Number one, I have participated in cleanups of the Jordan River, and I'm disgusted by what is found in the Jordan River. Like just shopping carts, couches, you name it, every kind of junk is in the Jordan River. And so the water quality of the Jordan River, and then let's face it, development around the Jordan River also can't be really healthy for all the drainage that goes into the Jordan River. So have you thought some issues about the Jordan River? Do you have some?
Absolutely. The Jordan River is really the lifeblood of a lot of areas here in the county, and we know that it feeds into the Great Salt Lake, and that the Great Salt Lake plays a tremendous role here in the county.
And let me add too, since I'm so passionate about this, it is a major migratory bird flyover.
Sure.
It's the Trans-Pacific migratory birds, and they fly over to Farmington Bay.
Sure.
If the Jordan River quality around the Jordan River is lost, we're gonna lose migratory bird migration.
Well, there's two or three items, and we could talk about this for much longer than what time would allow, but there are 2 or 3 areas that we really need to look at. Our stormwater runoff is a really big issue. And I have worked for years looking with the best management practices, which is on-site infiltration. It helps prevent a lot of stormwater runoff. It also helps prevent a lot of contaminated water that would be running into the Jordan River. And what it does, it encourages on-site infiltration, which replenishes the aquifers and follows the natural stream of the water. And so that's a really important one right off. Another area that we really need to be conscious of is what is happening with Utah Lake. We of course know that there's the algae bloom issue, and that is an issue that if we don't give it more attention and really understand the root of the problem, we are going to see it affecting us year after year after year. But what is happening right now is Utah Lake has senior water rights. So Utah Lake was first, and then you have Deer Creek, and then you have Jordanelle, correct? And so the water rights of Utah Lake are senior. So as they talk about the water level that is lowering at Utah Lake, which then the temperature of the water rises, which then expands the algae bloom, and yet we are retaining the water up at Deer Creek and Jordanelle. And so we are artificially manipulating the levels of Utah Lake, which then affects the water quality coming through the Jordan River, and it also affects the local municipalities. We know that just this summer, the city of Riverton was threatened to have their secondary water, having their water cut off because of the water quality and the water volume in Utah Lake. And that would not be occurring if Salt Lake City and others were not artificially holding water in those in Deer Creek and Jordanelle. And so we need to have some real thoughtful discussions on, should we be allowing water to be held on junior water rights above, which then negatively affects the senior water rights below. And there are also a few other areas that we could talk about, but I'll quickly mention the use it or lose it law here in the state. If, for example, if you have water shares and if you don't use them within every 7 years, that you then lose that right. And so if someone, for example, in Orem or in American Fork or Highland, if they have water shares that they don't need to use, they'll oftentimes run it out across vacant property that doesn't need to be irrigated. And what we need to do is work with the state of Utah and actually change the water law that allows those shareholders to participate in a program that encourages them, instead of running it out on their property, to run it down the canals and streams, and then to the that goes to the Jordan River and then to the Great Salt Lake. And so there are 3 or 4 areas that we really need to be much more proactive on. But I commend your efforts on the Jordan River. It's great, whether it's the Jordan River Commission or others. There have been a lot of people that have put a lot of effort into improving that river.
Yeah, there have been, and there's really, can you think of an issue that's more important than water?
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that you've really thought this through, Dave.